Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So we're having a quiet evening at home by the fire. With Krishna and Balaram. Bhava Bhakti is eclipsing. And the cat. So, continuing our reading from the Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yes. It's Canto 3, Chapter 29, Text 36.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
You just need to hold it a bit more.
Okay. Okay.
Text 36. This Purusha, whom the individual soul must approach, is the eternal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as Brahman and Paramatma. He is the transcendental chief personality, and his activities are all spiritual. Purport. In order to distinguish the personality whom the individual soul must approach, it is described herein that this Purusha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the chief amongst all living entities and is the ultimate form of the impersonal Brahman effulgence and Paramatma manifestation. Since he is the origin of the Brahman effulgence and Paramatma manifestation, he is described herewith as the chief personality. It is confirmed in the Katha Upanishad, Nityo Nityanam. There are many eternal living entities, but he is the chief maintainer. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita also, where Lord Krishna says, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo. I am the origin of everything, including the Brahman effulgence and Paramatma manifestation. His activities are transcendental, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Janma Karma Chame Divyam. The activities and the appearance and disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are transcendental. They are not to be considered material. Anyone who knows this fact, that the appearance, disappearance, and activities of the Lord are beyond material activities or material conception, is liberated. Yo veti tatvata tiyaktva deham puna janma. Such a person, after quitting his body, does not come back again to this material world, but goes to the Supreme Person. It is confirmed here, Purusha Purusham Vrajet. The living entity goes to the Supreme Personality simply by understanding his transcendental nature and activities. So, question is, because you read this all the time, and especially in the Bhagavad Gita, where the very famous verse, He Janma Karma, he who knows my transcendental appearance and activities does not come back, but returns to me in the eternal abode. So, to what extent are you supposed to understand that? Just as I said it, like if you have a child and and someone in school, or someone quizzes them and it says, yeah, God, my mum and dad taught me God is not from this world, God is spiritual, God doesn't die, God isn't limited like us, doesn't have a material body. Basically, what is being said here, is that enough to send that kid back to Godhead? Or are we supposed to know it on such a level that we get extreme advanced symptoms of spiritual bliss?
Are you asking that to everyone, or you're conversing it with me? Well, I mean, the level that you just described is pretty high level. Of course, Prabhupada said that Saraswati's preaching was perfect. Saraswati, the daughter of Shyam Sundar Prabhu and Mother Malati. When she would ask people who is Krishna, and then she would say he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there's probably a distinction between being on the ultimate purified level, but at the same time, if one simply understands, and that child is answering that like in a realized matter-of-fact way, then one might argue, yeah, that's enough. What are some examples? Ajamil, he wasn't even calling out to Krishna really, nor had he any interest in Krishna at that point. He was calling out to his son Narayan, and just by calling out to his son Narayan with love, he was given another chance to perfect himself and go back. Now, yeah, I think that's the way we often understand it, right? As long as you can remember Krishna at the time of death, yam yam vapi smaran bhavam, or chaktva, or as tam tam vapi smaran bhavam yati praya. I can't remember it. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. Yeah, so if whatever you remember at the time of death, that state you'll attain. So, if at the time of death you're remembering Krishna, then your life's perfect. That's it. That's all there is to it. But if you read, the likes of, I would say, Sankalpa Kamudi, or some of the books by Shiva Ramaraj, he really puts it across, quoting the Acharyas. It's not so much him, he's quoting the Acharyas and helping us to understand that no, actual spiritual advancement means you have to make spiritual advancement. To get back into the spiritual world means you need to be on the platform of bhava. And, part of that, I think, may be because we may fall into what could be perceived as a sort of maybe an almost Christian type of thing. It's like, well, everybody's going back to heaven almost. Or if you just accept Jesus, then he died for your sins, so you don't have to worry about it. And then you just kind of take it easy. And it's like, oh, well, I'm a Christian, or I'm a whatever, not that I have anything against Christians, but, that sometimes can come across. It's the same for all people of all faiths. Amongst Hindus, it's like, well, I am Brahmin, and then that means, okay, so just because you were born to Brahmin family, like you're going to go back to Godhead at the end of this life, or go to heaven. So these things, Shiva Ramaraj kind of explains that it's like, we have to actually work really hard and move through anarthas and unwanted things in our heart, so that we can actually get back into the spiritual world. It's not that it's just going to be as easy as, chanting Hare Krishna. Prabhupada said, you can chant Hare Krishna for thousands of lifetimes. So, because if you're, God bless you, because if you're chanting on the offensive platform, then you're not going to get back in. But who's to say you chant, like Ajamil is just the perfect case, Led a debauched life, but then somehow at the time of death he chanted Narayan and more or less achieved salvation. And there are others. So I think it's not so crystal clear, but we have to remember that how difficult it might be to remember Krishna at the time of death, and or that there's also the principle that we can be experiencing the presence of Krishna in this life if we make great spiritual advancement. Jivan Mukta, which means that, or Jivan Mukti, that it means that, I'm on such an advanced platform that I'm seeing Krishna in everything. So someone like Srila Prabhupada, maybe some of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, or many, are seeing Krishna's hand in everything, and therefore they're seeing Krishna. all the time. So they're also on a liberated platform, so like that. Anyway, that's a very long answer.
Thank you.
Does it make any sense?
Yes.
Okay. You're just waiting for me to be quiet.
No.
Okay. Text 37.
Yeah.
The time factor who causes the transformation of the various material manifestations is another feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone who does not know that time is the same Supreme Personality is afraid of the time factor. Well, that's powerful. Most people are afraid of time, but if you see that Krishna is time, Kala, everyone is afraid of the activities of time, but a devotee who knows that the time factor is another representation or manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead has nothing to fear from the influence of time. The phrase Rupa Beda Sapam Bedaspadam, interesting, Rupa Bedaspadam is very significant. By the influence of time, so many forms are changing. For example, when a child is born, his form is small, but in the course of time, that form changes into a larger form, the body of a boy and then the body of a young man. Similarly, everything is changed and transformed by the time factor, or by the indirect control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Usually we do not see any difference between the body of a child and the body of a boy or young man because we know that these changes are due to the action of the time factor. There is cause for fear for a person who does not know how time acts. So Krishna is time, he's eternal time, and if we give him time, just like if you offer the Ganga back to the Ganga, if you offer your time back to Krishna, who is the personification of time, then time works in our benefit. As the Bhagavatam explains at the beginning, the rising and setting of the sun means the passage of time for most people, but for those who engage themselves in the service of the Lord, hearing and chanting His glories, the rising and the setting of the sun doesn't mean death, it means eternality. So there's kind of a different understanding for devotees. So if you engage with time in the proper way, then there isn't any botheration by time, and time is on your side. But if you fight against time, trying to use every second for your own sense enjoyment, then it's a losing battle.
Yeah.
A few thoughts from my side.
Good points.
Oh, thank you.
Time's also a good healer. Don't know why at this point about time, I was thinking of it today when I was loading the washing machine, and I was just thinking of something, and then it's a bit weird, but I was just imagining in the future and then advising some other people on situations that I've maybe experiencing now, and then imagining, this sounds weird, but then sharing with them, but it's all cool now, and then they're saying, how can you have gone through that, it's all cool, and I was answering, because Krishna's time, and time heals. It really does. Time heals, and all people just get old, life moves on, and what bothered you now, 1 year, 2 years, whatever, 10 years down the line, it's like whatever. So it's interesting because this comes up now, because I was thinking of it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I would say though that we have to be very careful. That is as they say, like an adage or a valuable saying, and certainly time heals all wounds. But at the same time, time, a lot of people find that even after the passage of much time, they're still holding on and harboring some really nasty stuff. And that nasty stuff that they've held on to for so long, over so much time, has caused them to not really move forward in any positive direction, but rather they've just walked around in circles because they keep holding on to what's going on in the past instead of letting go and moving into the future. So I think just to say there are some things for sure that it just takes the passage of time, and then things are seen and felt and understood in a different way. But for some people, it's really shocking how long they hold on to some things, especially things that hurt them. Seems like we forget good things that people did for us very quickly, confirmed, and we hold on to things that have hurt us for a very long time. What do you think? Why don't you put it in the comments down there, what your thoughts on this?
Right. Text 38. Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the enjoyer of all sacrifices, is the time factor and the master of all masters. He enters everyone's heart. He is the support of everyone, and he causes every being to be annihilated by another. Purport. Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is clearly described in this passage. He is the supreme enjoyer, and all others are working as his servants. As stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 5, text 14. Ekali Ishvara Krishna, the only Supreme Lord is Vishnu. Ara Sabha Bhritya, all others are his servants. Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and other demigods are all servants. The same Vishnu enters everyone's heart as Paramatma, and he causes the annihilation of every being through another being. So he's in everyone's heart. That's the conclusion. The summary. Essence. That's the essence. I like this interesting point. He causes the annihilation of every being through another being.
Yeah, what do you understand from that?
That ultimately is Krishna that's causing the annihilation, but he's using other people, as he does, to kill them.
Yeah, it says through another being, and I'm wondering, because you might read that one way. So, like, obviously, if a mosquito bites you and gives you malaria, then he used another being. But if a rock, falls off a cliff and crushes you, how did another being cause your demise? Would the rock be considered a being?
It's an inanimate object.
Yeah, well, it says being here.
And the rock didn't fall by itself, so the wind or something,
Okay. And if you're driving in a car on your own and you just go to sleep and crash?
Well, why was you so sleepy?
Really? Is that your answer? Anyway, I'm just saying, it's like, what, yeah.
Yeah, I took it, but it's true, not everyone gets killed by someone else.
Yeah, someone else.
Or something.
Okay, I mean, you think adiatmic, adidaivic, adibhotic, but another living being means, if someone dies of a disease, then of course you could argue that is a germ, and a germ is another living entity. But if someone dies of a heart attack, it might be a little different. Yeah, I think it's worth trying to understand that more. Okay, should we conclude there?
Yes.
Okay. So let us know what you think about that last statement. He causes the annihilation of every being through another being. Now, it's also saying that Lord Vishnu enters everyone's heart as Paramatma. He's another being as Paramatma, so Paramatma is arranging for our demise also. Anyway, let us know what you think. Thank you all very much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Bhagavatam Bites. Remember to like,
comment,
subscribe,
share.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.